Thanks for coming to the podcast today. You've been a motion graphic designer for, you said, 7 years?
Yeah, about six to 7 years. It's hard to tell with the pandemic because that's like an extra 3 years of your life that's just erased. But yeah, about 6 years, I think.
Okay, nice. So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How did you get started?
So I'm from Wales and I did a degree in graphic design in Bristol, University of West of England. And in there was an option to specialise in animation. I was like, okay, this is something, if I got paid for this, then I'm definitely keen to continue doing this.
Nice.
Which I did. And then graduated from there and took a job in a tiny agency in London. And I worked there for 3 years and kind of built myself up in a very junior role. I was looking to be in a place where I'd be able to have a couple of peers and learn from them. Sadly, that didn't happen, but what it did mean was I was the animator at that agency. So all the jobs that came in went to me, which meant that I had to learn quite fast. And I did work with a lot of freelancers, which was quite helpful. I wanted to go freelance, but I am sure, like everybody can relate, was worried about money. So I wanted to do it properly. I got offered a job for Ernst & Young, so a big accounting firm, and the pay was just way bigger than I was expecting. So I was like, okay, well, why don't I do this for a year? The content's not going to be something that I'm interested in, but that's going to set me up quite well to start in a much more comfortable position than I was originally in. And I did that for a year. So I was expecting to come on as an animator, but actually it was a animation director. So I was in charge of a team of like 15 people, 10 to 15 people.
Oh, so you thought it was like an executing role, but you were managing people.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that explains the pay.
Exactly. And that's another learning curve. So I think I did, in a year, I probably did about 5 days of animation. Most of it was saying, I know this client is being unreasonable, and pushing that feedback to an animator, which is a huge part of freelancing, isn't it? Dealing with your end client, knowing that what they're asking you is ridiculous, but coming up with a solution that fits both parties.
Well, how did you deal with that? Like, did you tell the designer, what you're doing is good, but the client wants something else, so let's just change it a little bit? Or how did you approach it?
One of the easiest things to do was just admit flaw in what the clients are doing and recognizing feedback for what it is. Because a lot of agencies I work for still come from a point of view where client is king. But I think the easiest way to get somebody to work with you on feedback is to admit or agree that this probably isn't what we want to do, but these are the people paying the bills. So you've definitely got the toss up between artistic license and artistic desire, what you want to be doing. But at the end of the day, these are the people giving you the money. So all we can do is kind of advise and say, we hear that feedback. This is what we suggest as the professionals. If they ignore that, then it's a case of just doing what they say.
Yeah.
But I also think, especially people that have been in the industry for a long time, a lot of people don't really take much shit. So I think the newer people in the industry, when they're kind of just happy to be involved, they're used to just being like, oh yeah, I'm being paid, so of course I'll do this. Of course I'll do this. But I find you can work with some people, especially in that year with UI, where people are just saying, well, that's ridiculous. I've already changed the color 3 times. I'm not doing it again. Whereas that's not the point. You are doing a job for a client. If they give you feedback, it's your job to do the feedback.
Yeah.
But I noticed that in myself as well.
I have this feeling it's not based on facts, but as soon as I started freelancing, people would respect my opinion and my input more. So that if I would say, oh, we do it this way because X, Y, and Z, if it was permanent, it's like, oh no, we just want this button there, just put the button there. Whereas with freelancing, if I say, oh, we're going to put this button here and not there because X, Y, and Z, they'd be like, okay, in that case, yeah, let's go with that.
I think there's a mentality shift when you become a freelancer, because you are constantly aware that you are your own brand and you are constantly trying to secure new work. So I think maybe that adds a level of professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're full time, I felt that I was quite happy to just get that project out the door and move on to the next one. Whereas with freelance work, there's constantly that undertone of you want to come across as professional, number one, and you want to get rebooked. I think that's what does it, is your drive to be professional.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if part of it is because you freelance. So it's your decision. It's no longer just a project, but it's like your expertise. When it was freelance and when it was perm, that it's often they just tell you what to do. They want to see, because they already have the design in their head. Whereas when you freelance, the reason they hire you is because they don't really know what to do and they look for your expertise. So rewinding a little bit to when you were at, what was it, Ernst & Young?
Yeah.
So from there, did you go freelancing right after, or was there something in between?
Yeah, so another reason I took the bigger money role was so that I could travel before going freelance, and I thought it was quite a natural break to be able to do it. I went traveling for 4 months, and then as soon as I got back, I got a call from them, and they booked me on a freelance basis for 2 months. And that was just the dream start to freelancing, because you have that initial fear of, okay, oh my God, it's happened. Now I need to go and find the work. But I had 2 months with where I knew what day rate to ask for, because I worked there and I set the day rates. And B, you know the work. It's not a scary place to go into. You're not going to have imposter syndrome, which is the worst feeling.
Like, how do you even start without imposter syndrome? But yeah, I guess like going to where you worked before is a way. Were you on the day rate before when you were full time?
No.
Okay.
So I was on annual salary, but I was also booking the freelancers. So I had transparency across what kind of range to put myself in,
mm-hmm.
which was massively helpful, because that's actually another really helpful thing that I found throughout that year. I had very visible, I had a good view of the freelancing network and what people were charging. I think that's something that people really struggle with, is how to price themselves, because for people that just start, it probably seems crazy to ask how much money we get paid per day.
Yes, it is mad. Like, I remember my first freelance gig, and I saw this job advert and I was like, it was £350 a day.
Yeah.
That was 4 years ago. Pre-COVID, and I saw that's like, no one's going to pay me that. And then I got that gig. And for me, I'm earning in a week what I did in a month. Why did I not do this sooner? And that's why I'm shouting about it, because your life changes so much. You have so much more freedom. You have so much more flexibility. You have so much more money, and people are so scared of it. And usually the things that they're scared of, like not finding clients or like imposter, all these kind of things, it often is the reverse. It's actually quite good for your confidence in a way. Of course, you will still have imposter, but if you step back and look at everything you've done, like the brands you told me that you worked for BBC, you worked for Google, like that's some really cool brands to work for. When you started freelancing, so was it because you set yourself the 1 year time frame up front, or okay? So there wasn't like a certain situation which pushed you to do it. It was something you always wanted to do.
Well, no, actually, it wasn't. I never wanted to go freelance. I had no desire at the first agency. I really liked the team environment. The most consistent thing I was being told by every single animator that came in was, why are you not freelance?
Mm-hmm.
And also how incredibly difficult it was to hire someone full time, because nobody wanted to leave the freelance life, which I cannot imagine going full time now. Sometimes I try and think of a salary that might entice me, but I honestly don't think there is. The worst case scenario, if I worked 14 days a month, I'd be fine,
mm-hmm.
which is crazy.
That's also the beauty of it, because I now work 4 days a week instead of 5. And if I just imagine not having this Wednesday off in between, it's like, oh, this is so exhausting. How did I manage to do 5 days a week? And I also think if I would work every single Wednesday, that would be a lot of extra money per year. But at the same time, I'm never going to be this young again. I'm never going to, like, there's certain things that you buy with not working. And there's certain things that you say no to if you work. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's okay to be able to just, I think more people should be able to do that.
I agree. I think it's a personal thing. And I think it's something that you really have to learn. People that just start, of course, understandably, you have that fear of, I need to work every day because I have no idea when the next booking is coming in. But you learn that the work will come. And another thing that's a big struggle with freelancing that doesn't happen in permanent roles is you see a financial value on your time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get an email with, hey, a bit last minute, but here, do you want this job for X amount? To train your brain to say, no, I don't want £2,000, or no, I'm good. When you know that you're just sat there watching Netflix or going for a run or whatever it is a really difficult thing to train yourself to say, actually, no, we don't need that much money. You just need to be comfortable.
When you went from perm to freelancing, did your rate increase?
Yeah, massively. An extra like 30,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you compare the same levels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a massive leap. So to wonder why we couldn't attract someone to come on full time is a very easy answer. There's just no financial desire for them to do that.
Yeah. I once had this gig with an agency and they wanted to get me full time, and then they were saying, oh, you get a gym membership, you get this, you get that. And I love the team. I was honestly considering working with them, but then the salary was like, I don't know, as much as I would have earned in 5 months. And I was like, if you want me to work for you, you'd have to give me at least X amount. But even then I was like, would I really do it for that money? And then the HR person was like, oh, that's not how it works. You cannot translate your freelance rates against, like, that's not how permanent works, because we have to pay towards your pension and these things. And it's like, yeah, but I can pay into my pension from a limited company.
And we do.
Yeah. So about pension, how comfortable are you to talk about money?
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I noticed some people are very hesitant. Maybe it's a cultural thing, like especially in Austria where I'm from, people are very like, you don't talk about how much you earn and things like that. Whereas all the freelancers I meet, like, yeah, let's talk about money.
Well, I think everybody wants to find what a fair rate to charge is. I don't know if it works the same for you, but every year my rates go up X amount. And that first 2 months of charging clients that you've charged, let's say £20 a day less, sending that email and saying, oh, my rates have gone up, you go back to that fear of, oh, they're not going to go for this. They're just, I'm going to lose this client and they're really important to me. But the reality is everybody does this. It's
good that you say that, because in my first 2, maybe even 3 years of freelancing, I didn't increase my rates.
No, neither did I.
Yeah.
I think it's very normal. It's too scary.
Yes, it's scary, but also I'm doing the same thing. Why should I ask for more? But then if you think of inflation and you're probably doing the same thing, but you're doing it faster and more efficiently, and you have more experience, so it's okay to charge more. But it took me a while to ask for more. And then what I did, instead of like increasing it every year, I increase it with every project. So with every project, with a new client, I now ask for like 10 quid more, 20 quid more.
We're the same. That's exactly what I did. It's a much more comfortable way of doing it, isn't it?
And then I hired my first subcontractor, and she transitioned from marketing into UX design. She is now mainly doing UI. It was quite a nice feeling because it was her first freelance gig. So I helped her get, and also I think first UI gig. So I helped her get the foot in the door. And then there was another previous client who messaged and I didn't have availability, and she's part-time on that other client. And then she was saying, oh, if there's any other gigs, let me know. And then I came back to her with like, oh, a client actually reached out. She's like, oh, for that one, I want £50 a day more. It's like, wow, look at you. Like, I wish I would have done that. It's like, it's good for her, but then it's like, should I increase my rate then so that my buffer is more as well? And then it's like, she can ask for it with so much confidence. And I'm like, oh, should I ask for more? But then they might just go with the subcontractor, which is fine for me, Have you worked with subcontractors before?
I haven't. I've been on the other side of it, I guess, with a couple of friends who I know. They've been very transparent and said, look, I've got this job. I'm happy to outsource this to you for 400 and I'll take the 100 markup. And I'm like, great, win-win for everybody. You get the money. You've been transparent. You're not taking the piss. Yeah. Absolutely fine. It needs to be with a trusted person is the big thing.
How was it for you transitioning from being perm to freelancing?
So I took that year to make sure I had enough money. So my aim was to have 2 months in the bank to protect me if I didn't have any income. And then I made this very weird spreadsheet of people that I wanted to have a conversation with before I went freelance. So a list of all the animators I knew, and I made sure that I went for a beer with every single one of them and took notes from every meeting. And
what did you learn? What did they...
Day rates, agencies that I should be looking for, like crazy things that I hadn't even thought of, like accounting, which of course is something that you need to think about. How to invoice, what the etiquette is on projects, on bookings, pencils, cancellations, confirmations. Even though it felt like quite an odd experiment going around all these people, I think it was massively useful.
Yeah.
Because all you can do is just gather information and it's just going to help you because you can, at least then you've got a reference point. I actually know someone who up until like 6 months ago was still charging a rate of $250 in London, which is at least 100 behind.
Yeah.
And he had no idea just because he doesn't speak to the rest of the community. So back to where you were saying, how comfortable are you talking about money? You need to be comfortable talking about money because otherwise you can be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think if you're charging that kind of money, the people that you want to work for aren't going to book you. Because for me, that says something about your quality of work or what people should expect from your quality. And I'm trying to think of anybody who's ever come back and said, sorry, that's too high on the rate.
If someone would come to you today and want to do motion graphic as a freelancer, what would you tell them?
I'd tell them to do exactly what I did because it is so useful. Just talk to as many people as you can in the industry. If you don't know people in the industry, just talk to them anyway, because they are people. And when I was full-time, I always had this big idea of these grandiose people who are very like ultra talented animators that you just can't speak to because they must have a big ego and they're just untouchable. But the reality is these are just people that are sat at home working in their house, and anytime anybody contacts me saying, hey, like your work, of course I'm going to reply. You're going to be an arsehole if you don't reply to that email. If you've got time, you're going to reach out to those people, and that's just kind of what you do in our industry.
Other than telling them to reach out to other people, what was like the most impact piece of advice that you got? Like, was it, for example, get an accountant, or was it more on the etiquette? Like, this is how penciling works, or like some people might not know what penciling means.
I think one of the hardest things is making the actual decision to go freelance, because you might constantly be thinking, oh, I'm not quite there yet, so I need to do X, Y, and Z. But the reality of it is you can get booked tomorrow.
Yeah. But we will never feel like we are there.
No, you're never going to get to that position. I only got to that position because I kind of put rules in place. Like, I'm working till this date. I need to save this much money, and then I'm going to go. You just need to commit to it, because the reality is usually you're going to be earning more when you're freelancing. So from the second you leave your job, you are now in a position to be earning more, and you're way more in control of your time. For example, even this right now.
Yeah.
I have a deadline on Thursday. I know that I've done the work, so I can pop out to come and do this for a couple of hours. And that's the biggest bit of insanity that I could not go back to in full-time jobs, is the days, weeks, maybe months where I sat at my screen kind of browsing the internet, waiting for it to hit 6, because I knew that I was on a schedule and couldn't go home. But it's just the rule that you have to work 10 till 6.
Yeah.
But what's the point?
What's the point?
Because you're all pretending this game, you're all doing the same thing, or you're even just stood in the office having a conversation. Just stop pretending.
Do you charge day rates or do you charge
day
project
rates? Yeah, I charge day rates for the majority of my work, but then I also do buyouts, which would be more for something like a 4-week booking, or for a longer form output, which would be 3-minute animation, that kind of thing.
The reason you go freelance was mainly because everyone else in your industry was doing it.
Yeah. That back to that point. So in my industry, it's massively recommendations, word of mouth, and one of the most uncomfortable things for me is when I put people forward for a job and then they have problems with payments. It's really uncomfortable because they're clearing my invoices, but not the people that I've recommended. And I've got 3 people with like thousands of pounds not being paid. Good bit of advice though. When I started, I made sure I signed up to 2 agencies, agents, purely because it's kind of like you with your subcontractor. They pay you. It doesn't matter if the client pays or if the client doesn't pay. So you're going to get your money every single week, and they find the work for you. To start out, I think is a really comfortable way in, because it's a good way to just get your foot in the door and be like, okay, this is what a day looks like. I think that's quite a nice thing to do, to start to see different agencies, because I think that's actually a big thing that I wanted to do when I went freelance, because I didn't want to lose that community aspect of it. So being able to go into different agencies, meet different people and see how different people worked was a really interesting way of doing it. But now I've kind of gained that experience and I've got enough work coming in that I don't need the agents.
For someone who wants to become a motion graphic designer on a freelance basis, and let's say they don't know anyone in the industry, they might not know how to charge, where to get started. So you recommend to them to sign up with agents. Are there specific platforms where it would be useful to have a profile? Like what would you recommend them to find their first gig?
The basics, you absolutely need a website. A lot of people are saying that Instagram, a active Instagram account is much more valuable than a website at the moment.
For motion graphics?
For motion graphics.
In general?
For motion graphics and editing, which maybe this is showing my age already, but that's starting to surprise me. But the biggest and number one thing is, as I'm sure any animator will know, is they need a show reel. And that will be 30 seconds to a minute of all the best work that you've done. You can do it in a day. You don't need to overthink it. You just need to put all of your best shots in 60 seconds and put some music under it. And then at least you can then get work. But without a showreel, you will not be able to get hired. Once you've got the showreel on the website, is start to contact agencies. You need to take the time to go on an agency's website, go on their Instagram account. Have they released a new project in the last week that you can mention in your email and be like, hey, I saw your article on motionographer. If you have those kind of links and you can prove to an agency that you are actually interested in them, they're much more likely to respond, because they are going to get, depends on the size of the agency, but they're going to get tens or hundreds of emails from people like us every day. So you need to find a way to make yourself stand out from that.
I think it doesn't really matter what type of freelancer you are, having some sort of online presence, no matter if it's like an active Instagram, if it's a website or a profile on LinkedIn might be sufficient. I think that's very important. Is there anything like in your freelance career, was there ever a moment where you're like, I'm just gonna, maybe this is not for me?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I don't. I think there's never been a problem with freelancing itself. It's been a problem. It's been an error in judgment on my half. And that would have been when I took too much work on in COVID. But the reality is you don't have to do it. If it's something that you haven't signed up for, everything's on an email chain and you do not have to do it. It's the most important lesson you can learn. You can say no. Like it's just you do not have to accept everything. And if you really feel you're going to feel out of your comfort zone where, yeah, just step it up and you can do it. You can finish the day. But there are going to be some situations where you are going to put yourself through hell where you really don't need to.
I 100% agree. Learning to say no, but also your boundaries. Like, okay, I have holiday. I am not going to check my emails. I'm not going to check my Slack. And let all my clients know that I'm not available those days. But it's still this, it's your business. What if something happens? And it's this voice like, it's okay. It's just 1 week in your life. There is not going to be anything massive. And if it is your dream client or whatever, it can wait until a week later.
It can. And I think actually moving to Portugal has been amazing for me because in London, there's a massive culture of work is king. If you go to the pub after work, you're talking about what projects or what interesting things you've been doing at work. Whereas here, it's the shift in work-life balance is massive. People work to live here. And since I've moved here, I don't take on extra jobs because why would I? Why would I want to stay in the office rather than going to the beach or going for a beer out in the sun? It's just a complete shift in mentality towards work. You need to enjoy yourself and go out.
One thing actually that you mentioned before, like subtly a few times, was the loneliness, like liking to work with colleagues. So now that you freelance and also fully remote, how do you tackle that? Like, what's your workaround to that loneliness?
I always work in a co-working space because even if you don't speak to people, it's just being surrounded by different people. And also leaving the house is so important. Just
to wrap up the conversation, there are 3 questions that I always ask at the end. One of them you more or less answered, but would you ever go back to a permanent job?
No way. There's no way in hell. I can't think of a financial figure that would entice me.
And if you would go back in time to that person that was planning on going freelance, okay, I need this financial buffer, I need this, I don't know, much experience, etc., what would you tell that person?
Just do it. You just have to. You can wait for all these things to fall into line, but you just do it because you have to give, most jobs you have to give notice anyway, and that's enough notice.
If you think of your future self 5 years from now, coming back to you today, what do you think they would tell you?
I think I'd be telling myself to do what I'm doing now. And that's just to calm down a bit. Work is not that serious. And just work to live. That's a much more important way of living. You don't need work all the time, and you don't need that next project because it will come. It always does. There hasn't been a situation in 7 years where the job hasn't come.
Nice. Nice. That was super nice talking to you.
Yeah, you
Thanks
too.
so much for taking the time. For the listeners or anyone who's interested in motion graphic or the work that you do, where can people find you?
You can go to my website, which is myname.com, so wilcolquhoun.com, or my Instagram handle is wilmotion, @wilmotion. And if anybody needs help or advice, like I said, reaching out isn't as scary as people might think. So just drop me an email.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.